What are the cons of not having kids? Cannot form military alliances. 3-player located. People assume you don't like kids. I love kids and am honorary cool aunt to several. Things just didn't work out for me to have my own. Didn't meet spouse till older, went through traumatic life events during post-marriage childbearing years, etc. You aren't constantly distracted, so the existential dread creeps in low. There is plenty of existential dread when you have a child. It is just focused on their future. I seriously discussed this with my wife as something to recognize if we decide not to have kids. You don't have the same perception of time. When I run into a friend and his kids have aged 10 years, you realize how old you are. The days are long, but the years are short. I have a 2-year-old and it's crazy how she's now a proper child. V's baby. It really feels like yesterday. She couldn't turn over or hold her head up by herself. You've never felt more important than holding hands with a 2-year-old on the way back from school, or something similar from my favorite book, Anxious People. Mine, let's call her Jane, is turning 4 in July, and it's startling how much emotional growth happens between 2 and 4. Just today, her teacher confirmed issues between Jane and her best friend Betty. Jane is an observer and usually avoids participating, while Betty is a whirlwind and magnetic. There's a natural leader, follower dynamic here that grew over a few months. But sadly, the teacher said their relationship has grown toxic. Betty has been bossing Jane around, leading the teachers to keep them separate when possible. Their friendly competition culminated when yesterday Betty said good morning wearing a Disney princess crown, and Jane's face absolutely dropped. So tonight we were concerned, chuckling about our little one's school drama, but also lamented how this is a part of her life that we no longer had complete control over. She's growing up.
And I miss those carefree days when she was 2 years old, when the swings could bring her so much joy.
Hold those little hands tight and take lots of video. You'll forget so fast because life keeps moving. It's fun to remember. But why was Jane upset that Betty said good morning? Was she jealous of the crown? I have an almost 3-year-old daughter, and this nearly made me cry. Have an 18-month-old girl and couldn't agree more. Picking her up from nursery is comfortably my favorite part of the day. Watching her run up to me, arms wide open and smiling. Add to that her vocabulary, exploding and getting a personality. This period feels so special. I have friends whose kids are hitting high school now. It's like... Interesting reading this. My life is literally broken up into before kids and after kids. It's a very distinct line. Never thought about if it wasn't like that. Same in a way, but also not. I remember doing lots of things back in the day, like going to concerts, taking impulse weekend trips and stuff I obviously wouldn't be able to do with kids, so I understand it was before. But somehow, I can't really grasp it. I had such a different outlook on life that it messes memories up. It was careless, impulsive, and pretty stress-free. However, the huge downside to it is that I never realized that my kids make me appreciate things more. Everything. From a calm moment with morning coffee, to hugging my kids, to going to the grocery store, and spending some alone time just me and my oldest, to going to a cafe with the twins, to going to a cafe with the twins, to watching a movie and snuggle down with my husband in the bedroom after kids have fallen asleep. I enjoy life in the moment a lot more since I've had kids, both kid stuff and kid-free stuff. In my experience, it's lonely. A lot of people assume if you don't have kids, you don't like them, don't want anything to do with them, and know nothing about them. I was the oldest of many kids and helped raise them. I understand what kids are like. I can entertain them and like to play games with them. I can feed and change babies. I can rock them to sleep. I understand they're likely to destroy things and make messes, whether intentionally or not. I have a box of toys and bubbles at my house in case of small visitors. I get that I will never understand what it's like to have a child, but I like to think I'm pretty accommodating. And yet many friends distance themselves because they don't want to bring their children to my house in fear of them wrecking it. Note, I'm not a fancy person and don't care anyway, and don't want me to see theirs because it's wrecked. They don't want to go out because it will be too stressful. When we finally do get together, I listen to their stories but rarely get asked about my life because they're so consumed with parenting. That's all they can focus on. It's hard to watch those friendships slip away despite my best efforts. Edit, Thanks for all the comments. Yes, I have friends without children as well. It's just difficult once you get to a certain age, as you're the minority. I wasn't criticizing my friends, as I understand the focus shifts. I was just sharing my reality. When you're someone who doesn't have kids because of infertility and health reasons, people feel like they can interview you about your private medical information. Edited to add, I literally wrote this and went to bed. Thank you everybody for engaging in so much conversation. Or they optimistically tell you about all the miracle babies born to people with your same health situation. Or they start talking about you having the option to adopt and how it's better than birthing own child. You can lose friends. As you get older, your friends who aren't child-free will start getting married and having kids. They'll still love you, they'll still like you, they'll still like you, they'll still try to keep in touch. But their life will be very different from yours. Their priorities will change and you will inevitably be bumped down the list. You could start resenting them for not being present for you like they used to be. They could start drifting from you because they feel you don't understand their life and struggles anymore. Now, I'm not saying a friendship can't survive a difference that big, but a lot of them don't. And to be clear, you shouldn't have kids just to keep friends. It's possible to make new friends. It's also possible to renew old friendships once the kids get older and your friends are more willing to be away from them. It's just hard those first few years when their life has changed so much and yours has not. Yeah, I'm in my 30s and the first couple in our friend group just had a kid. So far it's still going okay, but mostly because we're compromising, which is what you got to do right. So we meet up at their house or online. We've gone over a few times specifically to help them with stuff, baby-proofing or just cleaning up, etc. We'll probably get replaced sooner or later with friends who have kids. That's just kind of how life works. But for now, it's going all right. Some of my best memories are sitting with my mom and grandmother and sisters around a table, just talking and working crossword puzzles together. There's a closeness there that can't really be replicated, even with your best friends, a lifetime of memories. I'll never have that with my adult children because I don't have any. I don't regret not having kids, but those times around the table are gone forever now. Thank you for reminding me to visit my grandma edit. Thank you guys for all the comments. This was a major wake-up call to me to call her and see her ASAP. One of my greatest magical wishes would be to be able to live through two different life paths, starting at, like, age 30, one with kids and one without, to get both experiences. I have a 4-year and a 1-year, and it is maddening sometimes, like, holy. Yesterday, I had to pull the car over because my 4-year was screaming at me, and I was getting so upset I couldn't drive safely anymore until we both calmed down. That said, I think at this point I wouldn't be able to switch to a life without them. Not even for a moment. It would feel like suicide. What I would use, though, is a pause button, so I could sleep in. Take a nap, take a break and cool down. Clean broken glass up off the floor before someone steps or crawls in it. I am an only child. There will come a day when my whole family is dead. Mother, father, aunts, uncles, all of them. And the only family I have left will be those I married or made. I will spend years, possibly decades, without a single family member alive. I will be forced in those last years to draw up a will, deciding who gets my meager belongings when I die. I will leave no legacy, no furthering of my line, no solace that in death, my home family stuff will continue in any way, or even be remembered. Many people are afraid of being forgotten after they die. My destiny is to be forgotten long before I pass. Edit. Since many seem to be misinterpreting that last line, I'll clarify. It means I'm afraid of being stuck in a nursing home for decades and becoming one of the people forgotten about while they are still alive. The absolute best feeling in my life as a mom is when my 19-year-old son, who had moved out, comes home with half a dozen of his friends, and they raid my kitchen and pull out Monopoly, or Risk and just relax like teenagers, taking a break from adulthood for a minute. I will cook a big meal and they'll stay for hours. It's pure bliss. I couldn't imagine life without moments like that. Hello, lady. It is I, your son's friend. I forgot the address again. I, too, choose this lady's house. I love my, considerably flawed, family, but that would have never been my house at 19 or ever. I do have a good friend who had that house, though, and we still spend time there hanging out and barbecuing in the backyard this day, in our 30s. His parents are like our own. It's a really beautiful thing, and I tell him that probably too often. It's cool to hear the other side of this dynamic, and you're an amazing mom for opening your home to kids who may not have what your son does. As an older parent, I think my brain had become less malleable. Kids have been good for me because I've had to relearn how to be patient and break some of my bad habits. Edited, spelling, thanks. The family you grew up with only diminishes in size, even so far as dying out completely. My mom always told me as a kid that our family was small, but I never realized what that meant until I was much older. The grandparent generation had 4 or 5 kids each. Their kids had 1, 3 or none. I only had 3 cousins on my mom's side, and only one was even remotely near my age. 3 cousins were dead before I was 35. Wild to think about sometimes. If you are an introvert, you can make new lasting friends from parent groups because you have a lot of child play date activity. It's not something that should be looked down on because even quiet autistic fathers get to socialize with the pretext of attending children's events along with their wife. Can vouch for this. My mom only became friends with her best friend because I became friends with my best friend. Wing childing. I chose not to have kids, and honestly, I'd say this is the biggest con to me. Making friends as an adult without kids is nearly impossible. You don't meet people through school functions, etc. Plus the people you do meet usually have kids, and so schedules do not line up. You don't have as much in common. People you like with kids are often very busy. Understandably, of course, and are much harder to make plans with. The part about not having things in common with people is so real. I barely said a word at the last social gathering I attended because literally 90% of the conversation was about everyone else's kids, and all I had to add to the conversation was just shit like "oh, that's cute," or "damn, that sucks." Agreed. As a child-free adult in their 30s, my friends are all either a decade younger or a decade older than me. Finding friends is more difficult. The younger friends want to go out later, and the older ones just don't always relate as well. It's a grey area for my age group. I keep in touch with a co-worker I worked with 5 or 6 years ago. We still talk and hang out once or twice per year. Since I quit that job, he's gotten married and had 2 kids. He's confided in me that I'm his only friend he has now because of his kids. One is 6, his wife's kid from a previous marriage, and the other is 2. He only has time to go to work, then come right home to watch the kids while his wife works night. He said he lost touch with all his other friends because they all either moved on, died, or weren't able to maintain the friendship since he never had time to see them anymore. Me and his friendship is 99% text or video call based. I guess I'm the only person he knows who's cool with just talking on the phone instead of hanging out to stay friends. Makes me kind of sad to think about BHA. He adores his kids and loves them more than anything. He's a fantastic dad. But they also caused him to lose a lot of people close to him, and now he's unable to meet more people. That must really suck. There is absolutely a sense of community that comes with having kids. School functions, sports, for whatever they do, there are usually some cool parents you can find. I coach my kids in sports too, and that's been a blast to get to know all the kids and parents. Nobody will ever be as impressed with you as your own 4-year-old. I made rolls that didn't rise once and she ate 3. I am a biology major, and I can tell her very basic things about sharks or birds and blow her mind. I taught her how to play Mario Kart, and she congratulates me on doing well every time we play, even if I did an objectively poor job. She tells me good job for going to the bathroom. I'll never have this kind of support again in my life. Every day when we get home from school, I give my son a snack, and he says it's great to have a dad like you. Little man, I am literally handing you a bag of sour cream and cheddar chips. But thank you, Edit. If your dad sucked, I'm sorry, and I am your dad now. My 17-year told me today he's going to write his college application essays about all the science things I did with him when he was little. That's why he turned out like he is. Honestly, it made me feel so good, I almost cried. My dad did the same thing with me. We used to read this old 1950s reference book about the periodic table, and it would list things like each element's density and boiling points at sea and boiling points. Etch, and I was so blown away, I still remember. Densest element, osmium, over 20 kb liter. Imagine that milk bottle. He taught me about how different elements came about because of these particles called protons and neutrons and electrons that exist, that are like the Lego building blocks of the universe. I was so obsessed with this, and I would ask him every night to tell me about it again, like a bedtime story. Fast forward until today, and I'm getting my Fiji in astrophysics. Thank you, science dads, and best of luck to your son. Edit. To clarify, I'm a woman. Remember to be a science dad and a science mom to your sons and daughters. That is high praise indeed, especially from a teenager. You're gonna remember this and ride the high for decades, my dude. I had a similar experience with my son. He told me the number one dad. I asked him how he knew that. He told me he Googled it. Well, son, I can't argue with that. How is that possible? My 5-year-old assured me that I was the best dad in the world. I was presented with socks that stated I am the no one dad, so I think that made it official. Jesus Christ, you just reminded me of the time my dad got me sour cream and onion chips when I was like 4. And I was so excited to tell someone. So, because it was the only phone number I knew, I called 911 to tell them my dad is the best dad ever because I have chips now. The dispatcher called my parents later and said it made their whole week. My dad wasn't as pleased. Limfo. Your kid is the cutest. I know every parent thinks this, but he's sincerely one of the sweetest people I've ever met. Nothing more amazing when the student becomes the teacher. It was a special moment to me when my son was able to tell me facts, or when my other son was able to beat a game. I couldn't. It's amazing to see them grow from sponges of everything you say to actually seeing them seek out knowledge and be excited to share it with you. I'm very computer savvy, always have been. I work in software. When I had a kid, I knew there would come a day when they would show me how to do something I didn't know how to do on the computer. I just didn't expect it to happen when they were sick. I actually heard kids were getting less tech savvy nowadays because they mostly just use apps on iPads with very intuitive UI. Kids are starting to lack troubleshooting skills because things just sort of work. Glad to hear your kid is striving though. When I wanted to play a computer game as a kid, I had to type it in from a magazine myself. My 7-year boy and I had a magical moment playing Paper Mario, the Origami King, together. There's a point about 34 of the way through the game where you're dropped into a game show, and you have the option of playing a sudden death round based on one question. From these 4 choices, pick the one that matches the lyrics from a song that you heard in the first 14 of the game. My memory is shite, I guessed. After a tense moment, the womp womp sound played and Mario got launched out of a cannon over the horizon. Wrong answer. Game over. Boy was crushed. I said we should try again and that we'd get it right this time. We replayed up to the game show again. Again we got a question about a different song this time. Daddy, it's B, he said. I'm pretty sure it's C, I said. No, it's B, I said. No, it's BK. I know it's B. The clock was ticking down to 0. We had to guess. Okay, buddy. I hit B. A tense moment later, the screen burst into fireworks and applause. Immediately, I leapt out of my seat, laughing and overjoyed, and gave him a huge hug. He beamed like the sun with happiness. We celebrated together that he'd gotten it right. About once every 3 months, he brings up that game show, and I tell him how proud I was of him, and we share a moment of joy together. Yes, my toddler is a sponge, and we put on educational shows for him. The stuff he remembers and then connects to other things is impressive. Makes me so proud. Tonight, my 4-year-old came over to me and said, Daddy, you're really cool. He's definitely wrong, but it's still nice to hear. No, he's not wrong. If you're cool to him, then you're cool. Love yourself the way he loves you. It's the best gift you can give him. No one will ever be as unimpressed with you as your own teenager. They do not care what you've accomplished. I hear that a lot from famous celebrities. Their kids don't give a shit that they're on TV and in all these movies. This dude dads. She tells me good job for going to the bathroom, encourage that. It'll be really helpful in like 60 years. It's hard to explain. The special moments with kids. Something so mundane can happen that just grabs your heart and makes you wish harder than you've ever wished for anything before, that you could freeze time and just stay in that moment with your child forever. Like the other day, my 17-year-old son can be your typical crunchy teen, and sometimes he's such a tough nut to crack. You know, it's pretty common to think teens don't care about anyone. But I've just learned recently that I'm sick, and just like everything, it's hard to know how he feels. I was taking a nap the other day, and I woke up to him hugging me. He must have been checking on me and saw me sleeping and just wanted to hug me for some reason. It was like he was little again. Those are the moments. My girlfriend has kids that I've known for a while before we started dating, so we have a pretty cool relationship. My mom was fostering a dog for about a year, and my GF decided to adopt her and finally brought her home today, and the kids went absolutely mental. Her daughters have my phone number, mostly for emergencies, but today my phone was flooded with pictures of the girls and the dog cuddling and messages, thanking me for getting them a dog, and about 1 million "I love you" texts. I normally hate when my phone goes off because I don't particularly like talking on the phone or texting. Today was different and damn near made me cry about 12 times. Best day in a long while, and I plan on having one of the pictures framed and kept in my office to look at when I'm having a crappy day at work. I've never wanted kids, but these girls make me want to be a better man, as absolutely fucking cheesy as that sounds. That is so gosh darn sweet. I'm legitimately one of the luckiest men on the planet. On the flip side, I had a buddy who was 22, past last Christmas. He had a brain tumor. He went from a tough construction worker and a man's man to helpless. And I remember hearing him say, "Mama, I'm tough, but I'm not this tough. Sickness can make the toughest person turn into a kid again." There are lots of stories about big, strong, tough men on the battlefield, crying out for their mothers in their last moments. Horrible, but universal. I broke my back when I was 19. I was a partying punk, staying at my boyfriend's or on the streets half the week. I had 2 part-time jobs and decent grades. I was still on good terms with my family, but was really pushy and focused on independence. Literally within 3 weeks of that, after my accident, I remember crying while sitting on the toilet in my parents' master bedroom, which they had given me for my recovery, because it has an NCY. I was constipated from post-surgical opioids and had fallen twice getting to the bathroom in the first place, and I just started sobbing, screaming, swearing, and sobbing in frustration and pain. And my mom came in, and she just hugged me and rubbed my shoulders, gave me a glass of water, and encouraged me to push even though it hurt. She even sang an old lullaby with me to pass the time and calm me down. She later told me it reminded her of the potty days. These days, because I don't want children, we call it the delivery room experience. Parents are always your parents, no matter what age. What a beautiful moment. He's still your little boy. I hope your health improves. My son is almost 2 and is getting to the quick-to-react stage and will go apeshit over the smallest inconvenience. For a few weeks, we've been trying to get him to tell us what he's struggling with so we can help. In the last few days, he's been yelling "Hi LPs" instead of resorting to the usual theatrics. So mediocre, but it's one of the first times I felt like I might be doing okay with this parenting thing. I will always remember my toddler nephew will cry and never let me go just because I answer all her babbling and question earlier. Free love, best wishes for your health. For me, I have the most fun with my kid. Literally, they're just the coolest hangout buddy. Want to go to a science museum and write fart in the sand table? Hell yes. Want to watch animals do dumb shit on YouTube for an hour? Don't have to ask me twice. Want to make popcorn at 9 a.m.? Why the hell not? We have dumb inside jokes, scream, sing to music, do experiments like make a cake using the recipe from Minecraft. It's not good. Watch Star Trek, look at ants, have pun battles, you name it. It's just so fun. This is why I work in elementary school. I just love doing silly kid stuff. I have secret handshakes. They call me silly names. We do directed drawings together, play make-believe, have inside jokes, the whole shebang. It makes me excited for when I have my own kids and get to be goofy with them. This is also why I teach middle school. Examples. I have days where they can only ask me yes or no questions and the magic 8-ball answers. Better use the bathroom during passing. And if it's not a magic 8-ball day, I'll ask if they've been good lately. If they answer no, then I reward them for their honesty and let them go. Shelley, you better sit down before you cause me paperwork. Edit! For anyone freaking out about my sarcasm concerning the bathroom. Having inside jokes with your own kid is something I never expected, and I absolutely love. He also shared my sense of humor, so I find him more and more hilarious as time goes on, and he keeps adjusting his jokes to get a laugh out of me. People asking you when you're having kids. You could do that with an actual friend, though a peer who has life experience, so you don't have to explain basics to them and has their own money to pay for their shit and can take turns driving. People having kids to have a friend are weird. I have no kids and my parents constantly ask me to do stuff for them. Whenever I ask why my older brother doesn't get asked to do these tasks, the response is along the lines of, well, he's got kids so he's busy. I fear losing my wife and having nobody else in my life someday. Can't do dad jokes or make the sounds only dads make. Hey, I've got no kids and I'm a woman, and I've been doing an amazing rendition of my dad's Wookiee yawn since I turned 30. Sometimes the weird dad sounds just feel better when you get older, and I like to think my dog really enjoys my dad jokes. Potential loneliness when older. Less obvious who to pass assets onto after death. When I die, bury me with my 3060 type. Working briefly in nursing homes has given me utmost confidence in saying that having kids is no guarantee of avoiding loneliness in old age. The upside is, whoever decides to be closest to me during my lifetime will get a very delightful surprise when I part. Had an older neighbor. She never married, never had children. She was the last of her family. When she passed away, she left everything to her physical therapist. The older neighbor had fallen and broken her hip. She was bedridden for months. Her physical therapist was the closest person she had and knew when her health had suddenly declined from the bad fall. It kind of surprised a lot of us. 25 years ago, there was an old guy in the apt next door that was the same way. Used to feed him computer games to play because he got me hooked on Diablo, one shareware that was the first couple levels, and we'd occasionally go fishing. Dude was a wizard with a pressure cooker. He died, had no one, and left everything to me. He didn't have too much. A couple floppy disks of porn from the 1990s, 20 grand in the bank, an old, really nice Jeep Commander, a huge collection of those really shiny big discs of movies, forgot the name, and home item. Once he died, then all of a sudden his relatives wanted everything he had. His will basically said everything goes to me and not a single thing for the ungrateful family that hasn't seen me in 20 years or never bothered to call love ya herb. You were a good dude through and through. Lasadisky. I'm a home health physical therapist, and this happens a lot. I mean, not the leaving money thing, but becoming the closest person a patient has. Sadly, it's not just people who don't have kids. My fiancé is at home after 2 months in the hospital from a brain hemorrhage. He has only had 2 friends visit 3X in the past 3 months. There are lots of reasons people are left alone and suffering. I don't understand it, even though it's actively happening to us. Assets. This. Plus, as a geriatric nurse, I've seen my fair share of lonely old people with kids who barely ever got a visit from, say, kids. I also have taken care of a 91-year-old lady who never married, never had kids, but she had visitors every day from friends' neighbors from when she was still living alone. Even friends she had made on one of her many travels. They all came to visit Auntie Jo. Although she had Alzheimer's, she could still tell you many stories. And she wasn't the only one. There was also a tower of a man that used to be a pilot. He spoke multiple languages, and in his confusion sometimes reverted to English. I'm Dutch, German or French. I speak little French, but English and German are no problem for me at all. His girlfriend, an awesome lady, came to visit often, and she told me I was one of his favorite nurses. He sometimes could get aggressive in his confusion. Never with me, though, added another example. You have to get up and get your own beer. I don't think everyone should have kids. It's perfectly valid to not want to. That being said, I have never experienced a love like I have for my children. It's like nothing else. It also feels like a purpose in life that matters. But those are necessarily cons of not having kids, just experiences some people opt out of. I love my kids more than anything, would trade them for the world, but I fucking hate the assumption that you should have kids just because you should have kids. You'll be missing out on a special kind of love, joy, and pride without them. But it's a responsibility that isn't for everyone. So, if you have any reservations about becoming a parent, go with your gut feeling. You will find fulfillment in your life in other ways. Really nicely worded. One example. Life was great and fulfilling before kids. But recently I had a bad day and my daughter offered to read my younger son bedtime books. So I could read my younger son bedtime books. So I could rest. It's so sweet to experience that special kind of love. Certainly nothing was missing in my life before kids, but I'm really glad I had kids. No child tax credit. ATA. I only stated a fact. No child tax credit. I don't think any sane person is advising anyone to go out and have a kid just to get a tax credit. The $300 a month I would have received is nothing compared to the $2,300 a month that daycare costs. For context, my sister just had her second baby. 26. I'm not sure I even want one. But people like to ask me when I'm going to. They say, who is going to take care of you when you're old? Okay, and what else? I hate when people use the who will take care of you when you're older line. Having kids doesn't mean they'll automatically take care of you when you're old. A lot of people with large families end up alone in retirement home. Who will take care of me? The same people who will take care of pretty much everyone else. Nurses and caregivers, not kids. Not to mention the fact that that's such a shitty reason to have a kid. Edit. I was told by my mum when I was a teen that this is why I was born. She didn't want kids. She doesn't like kids. But she was afraid of being old and having no family to take care of her, so she had me. Do you know how absolutely crushing it is for a child to know that their sole purpose in life is to be their parents' caretaker when they're older? Do you know how much I've questioned throughout my life if I even truly matter and wonder if this is all my life is worth? Please, do not have kids if you're only wanting them to take care of you when you're old. They deserve better. They deserve more. I'm gonna have a kid so one day they have to repay the favor and take care of me. LOL. Okay, boo. If you want kids, then not having kids is a con. I can't think of anything else. Very well said. But to my point, I still don't see a con of not having a kid, but more so something that is gained by somebody that has a kid. I get the biological aspect of connection with something that is yours, but that's a pro of having a kid and not a con of not having one. I do not seek a connection, nor do I want a connection with something that's biologically mine. This is a good combo. I am not trying to be argumentative. I wholeheartedly agree with you that too many people have kids for the wrong reason.